Today, I want to show you the new hat that I got. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here, just outside here in my garage. And I want to show you what I picked up here. It might not be super obvious, but this is a Jaguar, or as my father always said, Jaguar. Like there were two words to it and wire was one of them. Anyway, I picked up this Jaguar XJ6 because it had some interesting characteristics, but it's actually a body style that I've wanted for a really long time. Let me show it to you. Now, this is a nice, long, slender Jaguar. What's interesting to me is it's actually very long, but it's actually very low. If I had my Audi A3 parked next to it, which I normally would, you would see that the Audi is quite a bit taller and quite a bit shorter. So you can see how the Jag is going over the little ledge right there, but my Audi will be easily a foot or 2 feet behind that. And then if we go all the way back here, you can see how it comes to this point and it goes almost right up to my garage door, but there's enough space behind my Audi that I can actually stand here like this with my golf club. So quite a bit longer, but that's what gives it that nice sleek look, you know, like me after I get out of the shower. But what I really love about this is that this was a car that I saw kind of growing up, and I won't say I loved it, but it just kind of exuded success. No one in Detroit really drove foreign cars, and so you didn't see cars like this a lot. I kind of remember the 80s Jaguar XJ6s. They were maybe a little bit more popular. I think they were a little more refined, but it was these cars here that kind of struck me as retro and vintage and had a lot of that class and aura without necessarily being like super old, like 50s, you know, cars, those kinds of things. Obviously 50s and 60s Jaguars are pretty nice, but this one is actually a 1979. So basically this platform existed through the 80s, almost up to the 90s. And the car just kind of got bigger and more bloated and a little more squared off. And all that stuff was for comfort. But this one is really the one that I wanted. So 79 XJ6L. I will tell you, a lot of people see this and think it's a 6-liter. They're like, oh, 6-liter V8, the thing must pull. But it's actually XJ6. And the L represents long wheelbase. And what that means is that this is a 4-door. Now, there is an XJ6 coupe, and I really wanted that. The funny thing about that is, until they went to this long wheelbase to make this back door a little bit bigger, as far as I know, I think the short wheelbase cars essentially just became coupes. Now, the coupes are more rare. They're more expensive. I really love them. If I could have had one of them, I would have certainly picked it up, but couldn't find one anywhere in my price range. These cars aren't that expensive. They aren't collectible. They made a ton of them. A lot of them have been modified with General Motors V8s, Chevy V8s, but this one has the original motor here. And I just want to show you, I think it's a 4-liter inline 6-cylinder. This is what it looks like. It's kind of a mess in here, but a lot of these look really, really awful. And a lot of these, like I said, have been replaced with General Motors engines. Now, I understand why. And one of the reasons is because this engine does not run well. It barely runs at all. If I start up this car and try to move it out there, it's going to belch black smoke. It's going to throw stuff out of the exhaust that looks like bear scat. It's going to bog down. When you put your foot on the gas pedal, the thing will almost stall. So this thing has problems, and that's why it's in here. So the interior, too, on top of that, is just a mess. And I've got a diaphragm on the driver's seat, which is busted, so the seat cushion is just hanging down to the bottom. Front and back, the leather is just cracked and parched. If you were to say, what's original about this car? I would say the interior is original because it looks like it's original. I actually think that the car was maybe repainted, you know, up to the rubber. I don't think the rubber was taken off or anything like that, but, you know, it looks okay. There are definitely some dings and scratches in there. The paint doesn't look bad for a 79, but let me explain why I got this one in particular. One, like I said, I really loved the shape, just the kind of the sleek, luxurious, maybe slightly understated nature of Jaguars. But this one is actually called a Series 2. Now, prior to this model, they actually had a Series 1, which had a much taller front grille. You might be able to see it. This one is a little bit sleek. The grille is kind of about the size of the headlights here, so it's not super tall. And they actually shrunk that, I think, to get the bumpers up to the right height. I actually did not like that big gaping grille. I thought that this gives it a little more of a pinched nose and looked a little bit better. Also on those, they tended to come with wire wheels. I didn't really like those. These are hubcaps right here, this cap here, and then a steel wheel. I actually like that it's polished. Some of these weren't for whatever reason, but I actually really like that. Instead of giving it more of that elegant look, it gave it just a little bit of that sportiness. You can see, obviously, the wheels aren't that big, but We've got white sidewalls on there, which make the wheel look maybe a little bit bigger. They're not in great shape either, but that is just one of the things that's probably been on there for years. I hate the fact that we have like these bump guards, these side strips on there. Not every car had that, but these were available in the factory. The problem with them is they're actually drilled into the body panel, so you can't just pull them off. You're actually going to have to fill in some sheet metal and repaint it, and so I actually really don't like them on there. I would say that some people might like it. It kind of elongates it a little bit. I also have a pinstripe that runs down the length of it. I don't like that. I wish that weren't there, a little more monochromatic. You have two gas fillers here, which is weird. You have a gas tank right here and a gas tank right there, and you have a switch on the dashboard way up on the front that you punch right there, and that will switch between the two gas tanks. So kind of a weird thing, but I guess they could have put a gas tank right here, which I think they should have, but whatever, they did it that way. But when we get to the back here, this is actually also one of the reasons that I wanted the Series 2. In the Series 3, even though the fronts were the same between the 2 and the 3, and I like that front, in the 3, the taillights changed. So these are kind of referred to as tombstone taillights. I like those. They look a little bit better to me, a little thinner, a little more vintage. And then they went to a taillight that filled in the whole back here. And that's kind of really what is seen a lot when you look at these old Jaguar XJ6s. You get that big full taillight. I'm not sure if that was kind of a legality thing or something like that, but this just had more of an antique vintage car look to it. So I really liked this one that sat in the middle, the front end from the 2 and 3 series, but the back end from the 1 and 2 series. So the 2 was the only one that gave you that. So I really like that. Now, they did come with these like overriders here on the bumpers that were for the American spec cars. You can get the European spec bumpers. There are companies that still make them. I think they look way better, but these are not something that you can just take off and reveal the Euro bumper. You can see these are actually different bumpers. They're kind of cut away here. So if I were to pull this off, there's actually no bumper there. And so to actually replace the bumpers is a big deal. You actually have to remove the hood, as far as I know, on the front. There's less work to do here on the back, but they are still a big faff to do. So even if you get a bumper kit for like $700-800, putting them on the front and the back is more of a project than I think a lot of people want to take on. The other weird thing about this, and I've seen some people address it, is that the exhaust pipe kind of kinks out. It kind of S's out to the corner here. And I definitely think it would look better if it were coming straight out. And I have seen people do that. Now, I actually found a video that explained why, or theorized why it does that. And it's because of the way the air kind of comes off of this car. So the aerodynamics of this is that there's a little bit of a vortex right there. And so the air kind of comes off here, and with the exhaust being right there, it picks up that exhaust and drags it away from the car. If you put kind of straight pipes, so the pipes are in here, there's some sort of swirling air effect, and you can actually get exhaust coming back in through the trunk into the car. So I think that this isn't just for aesthetics. Somehow they figured out that there was exhaust coming back into the car, and they fixed it with that shape. So if you do want to kind of make that look a little more modern, I would not change the location of them. So just something in the low-tech, designed by pencil and slide rule age, they were able to figure out. The other thing I think happened in the Series 3 is that this roof line became a little higher. I think they added maybe 2, 3, 4 inches to it to make it a little taller. And I will say, if you're going to get in there, it doesn't give you a lot of headroom to get into this. It definitely feels like you're pretty low. I mean, there's my Ghibli, and you can just see how much taller that Ghibli is. It might not be super obvious, but it's not a tall car, but it's as tall as any normal sedan, but it is inches taller where it matters than this car. Now, I will tell you, there are so many things wrong with this car already. Like I said, it will start, but it coughs, it sputters, it will bog down. The seats in the interior are terrible. The stereo doesn't work. The bushings are completely gone, but you can see up here, they are just rotted away and basically completely gone. As far as I can tell, the air filter is very, very old. Everything about this car is very old, and it just screams that way. So what I want to do now is try to fix as much of this stuff as humanly possible. See if I can at least get it back on the road. It would be awesome if I could just enjoy it as it is, take it out, drive it places, and just have it reliably start and go, right? I'm not necessarily looking for this to be a fast car or a high performance car or a good handling car, but it would just be nice to be able to take it out on a nice day, not in inclement weather, not on super hot days or anything like that. That's going to tax the AC or the heater or any of that, but just take it out and know that it's going to get me from point A and point B and back again, and not long road trips or anything like that. I just would love to have something that was kind of classy and a little bit different and doesn't break the bank. Like I said, these cars aren't collectible. Who knows if there'll be future collectible. There are a ton of them out there, but I always just really enjoyed the idea of having a car that looked like a classic, but was maybe just a little bit less of a hassle than a lot of the typical collector cars. So with that being said, we're going to spend every day from the moment I wake up, before I put on my makeup, in the garage on this car, seeing if we can get it improved and running once again. So if you want to see what happens with this little kitty, tune in all this week and I will show you all the things that I found, which are probably just scratching the surface, that need to be fixed, and we will go at it. So here's crossing my fingers that we can get this little Jag back on the road once again. So today we rest, tomorrow we start. Peter Von Panda, out.